So, I skipped the video on the last Monday. It's the holidays, so things have been a little bit crazy. But I just wanted to make a short video today. Last night, I took was my 11th T injection, and I always aspirate the needle when I do it. But when I withdrew the needle, there was a fair amount of blood that came out. I mean, not a huge amount, but I'm not a bleeder, so that's very unusual. But yeah, so it was significant enough that I had to like run, put a tissue to it and everything, and then tape a cotton ball on. For somebody who does not bleed naturally, that was a little unusual. My girlfriend is diabetic, so she's used me like as a baseline sometimes for testing her glucose meter. And it'll stick me and stick me and stick me. Can't get me to bleed. I'm easy to find a vein on. Phlebotomists like me, but even then, when they finish drawing, doesn't usually bleed afterwards. So I don't. I guess my blood clots fairly quickly usually. So that was unusual, and I was concerned. I don't want to say I was panicked because I wasn't like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But I was like, okay, is this a problem? How big of a problem is this? So I started looking up videos and everything. Never felt any side effects, but it did look like there was some misinformation out there, possibly. When I first got set up to take T, I went to the endocrinologist, and they said you can come into the office for your first shot, but they were like, but you said you work at a veterinarian hospital. Yeah, they're like, oh, so you're used to this, you use needles all day. I was like, I'm not a vet tech. I'm not authorized to stick needles into dogs. But I do watch my boss very closely, and I have learned a fair amount about it. And then I do have the advantage that my girlfriend is diabetic, and so she's been on insulin for a number of years. It's not quite the same, but I was like, okay, she sticks a needle into herself every day. I can do it once a week. This is what I'm on. This is testosterone. Oh, it's upside down. Cypionate, which that has to do with what it's suspended in, which is an oil suspension. And then I've got the syringes that I use. This one's actually a used one. This is probably the one from last night. This is a 25 gauge, which is how big the needle is around, 1 inch, which has to do with how long it is. And it's IM, which is intramuscular. As opposed to my girlfriend with the insulin, insulin is typically sub-Q, which is just under the skin, subcutaneous. So that takes a shorter needle. When I was instructed how to do it, they did have a nurse teach me how to do it and everything. You draw the air first, then put it into the vial and draw your dose, and it's really hard because it's in oil, so it's like drawing molasses. It's obnoxious, especially when you get down to the end of the vial, but it is what it is. And putting that air into the vial helps you extract the dose because you're not pulling against a vacuum. So that's why you're supposed to draw an amount of air first before you put it in. And she had me go through it with a little fake pad on my leg. I'm doing into the thigh. But she didn't tell me to aspirate. And I'm seeing videos online, and it seems like a lot of endocrinologists don't teach that. But I had learned it from my boss, who's a vet. When you aspirate, what it is you're drawing back on the needle. And the reason you're doing that is you've stuck a needle into the body. You need to know where the end of that needle is. When I was a kid, you see movies, you see TV, people get cut, they bleed. You start to think the body is just like a sack of blood around, with the structure of a skeleton and some muscles inside kind of holding it all together. That's not how it works. I've seen a fair amount of surgery since then. I learned a lot about the body. Pets' bodies and humans' bodies are very similar. We're all mammals. You've got veins, you've got arteries, you've got capillaries, you've got a lot of blood vessels, but there is no free-floating blood in your body. So if you stick the needle in and you pull back, if you get blood, that means you're in a vein, you're in an artery, you're in a capillary. That's the only places you are. I'm told that the likelihood of hitting a vein or an artery in the leg, in the thigh, is very low, but it's possible. What you want is it's supposed to be IM. And if you draw back on the syringe and you're in a muscle, you might get a little bit of air bubble. You're not going to draw back very far. It's going to feel like drawing against a vacuum again. So you might get a teeny little air bubble. They tell you not to have air bubbles in it when you inject yourself, but you're getting it out of your muscle. It's not the end of the world. If it's tiny, you're not going to feel it. I think what may have happened is I may have nicked a capillary or a vein on the way out after I had injected. So the plunger was fully depressed like that, and I was drawing it out of my leg. So I may have nicked something on the way out. The other thing my girlfriend said is, from several years now of injecting insulin, she said when she first started injecting insulin, she didn't bleed. She didn't bruise much. But the more she's done it, now she's more likely to have a little blood after she pulls the needle out. So I don't know if that's some more veins and stuff maybe growing in that area as a bodily response because you're having repeated trauma to the same area, be it, in the thigh or in the skin. That would make a lot of sense to me. The body is amazing. The body is designed to be a closed system. It resists having things pulled out of it. It resists having things put into it. And when you've got, repeated trauma, it makes sense that your body would then be like, okay, you need something more here because something keeps injuring this spot. I know we want tea, we want the effects of tea, but it is, as far as your body is concerned, it's an injury. It's a very, very tiny injury, but it is trauma to the body. So what I did see online, I saw some videos of people talking about what could happen if you did inject testosterone into an artery or a vein, probably a vein. Your arteries are big, they're deep, you're not likely to hit that, even with this length of a needle. You're more likely to hit a vein, which is the return supply. It's non-oxygenated blood. But that blood is returning to your heart and your lungs. You don't want to put air into a vein or an artery. When we're putting anything IV intravenous, which is into a vein, you have to be very careful there's no air bubbles in it, because an air bubble interrupts your circulatory system, and that can be very bad. But what you do have is oil. It's not air, but it's still not really supposed to be in your circulatory system. I saw some people in comments and stuff in these videos that were like, oh my God, you could get a pulmonary embolism. What I did not see was anybody that said, I know a guy who had a pulmonary embolism from this. Just, oh, you could, but no examples. What I did see examples of was, and I actually even found a bodybuilder's video for bodybuilders who inject steroids in the same suspension, the cypionate oil. There's something that they call Trenkopf. And what it is that blood, generally it's going to be in a vein if you hit it. And that oil is going, along with your blood, back into your circulatory system because it's non-oxygenated. So it's got to recollect oxygen to get distributed out to your body again. Um, and think of it like getting water in your oil in your car. It's a different viscosity than what's supposed to be in there. So when it returns to your lungs, then suddenly it's oil instead of blood. It's going to be, separated out into a very fine quantity. But what happens is it's the wrong viscosity, and suddenly people go into a coughing fit because they've got that oil in that lungs, and there's supposed to be a metallic taste in your mouth because you're aspirating, you're breathing. Yeah, aspirating is breathing too, as well as aspirating a needle. It's that pulsing that you're doing where you're drawing air in or drawing a substance in. But yeah, you're basically breathing that oil because it's traveled into your lungs. I've heard it's very scary, and people have gone to the ER for this because suddenly they're coughing and they can't stop. It's terrible. The size of the dosage that you're doing is going to make a difference. It sounded like it's something that happens more often with bodybuilders. Probably with steroids, they are likely to be injecting a larger dose with the steroids than you do with testosterone. My dose right now is 0.25 ml. That's not very much. So it's a small amount. I'm sure that the amount that you do would affect how bad your reaction is. But nothing happened for me. There was no blood in the syringe. I did aspirate and I got a teeny little air bubble like usual. And that was it. The blood was after I drew the needle out. So anybody who's out there who's still relatively new at it like I am, you get blood after you draw the needle out, probably not a big deal. Somebody who's a natural bleeder might have that from the get-go. This was the first time I ever experienced that. Sometimes I get like a teeny little drop of blood, but this was a fairly significant amount. I did hear of one other guy who got a hematoma, which is when a blood vessel breaks under the skin. That's where you have blood loose in the body. It's kind of like a really, really bad bruise, and it tends to swell up. Ironically, in the vet world, we're used to seeing it in their ear. The dog's ear swells up like a balloon because there's a blood vessel burst. But our bodies aren't shaped the same way, so we don't tend to get that. But yeah, that's not life-threatening either. But it is something you'd want to see your doctor about. So I don't have a song today. I'll try and get something in a couple days in Christmas Eve here. But voice is definitely changing some, and my God, I can start to see the mustache on the video screen now. So I appreciate that. I don't know, the lighting's crappy. So just wanted to put that experience out there. I don't know exactly who's watching this. I haven't advertised a whole lot or anything, but I have put the video out there on my Tumblr and Twitter feed and stuff, so there might be other people who are trans who are watching this. So that's my experience and my thoughts about it. If somebody else knows more and has some corrections or some additional information to give, feel free to add something in the comments. I would love to start a conversation with anybody. But yeah, if you're new to it and you're looking for advice and you came across this, always aspirate the needle because you need to know where in your body the end of that needle is before you inject the tea. But if you get nothing but a little air bubble in the needle and then after you inject you draw it out and you get blood, it was not a big deal for me. My girlfriend is a medical coder and she works with nurses. She actually talked to one of the nurses at her work about it who knows that I'm trans and is very supportive, and she didn't seem to think it was a big deal either because it was on the draw. If I was going to have a reaction with the coughing, that would have happened within minutes. Your circulatory system is very fast, so especially mine was even faster then because my heart rate went because I was like, oh my gosh, how bad is this? But yeah, so everybody stay safe, have a good holidays, inject safely, um, and I'll I'll be making another video, I think Christmas Eve if I can. So sorry no song this video, and sorry the last video got uploaded late. But yeah, here, gratuitous kitty. Say hi to the people, Froggy. Have a good holidays.